Hi there, I'm Alex Turnbull and I'm a pediatric dietitian and mom of two. Welcome to the Good Eaters Club, where I'm redefining what it means to be a good eater, not the kind that needs to finish their plate. If you're feeling overwhelmed lately by all the headlines about ultra-processed foods and wondering how to navigate it with the foods you choose to buy your family or feed your kids, you're definitely not alone. And spoiler alert, it's not as black and white as some people make it out to be. In this episode of the Good Eaters Club, I'm going to break down what ultra-processed foods are and whether or not you should really be concerned, and some things that you can consider. Let's start with this thing called the NOVA classification system. NOVA is a system that researchers have used to classify how much processing a certain food has gone through. And no, this really isn't about good or bad, it's simply about the level of processing. And it has nothing to do with nutrition, despite what people say. It's just a way to understand where different foods fall on the processing spectrum. There are 4 main groups within the NOVA classification system. Let's go through them really quickly. Group 1 is unprocessed or minimally processed foods. Things like fresh produce, or whenever any influencer talks about whole foods, milk, eggs, fresh meat, plain grains like quinoa, and even things like some frozen veggies and dried beans. These foods have no processing or just simple stuff like washing, chopping, or freezing to make them last longer. But there's really nothing added to them. Group 2 is processed culinary ingredients. And these are things that we use to prepare certain foods, like oils, butters, salt, sugar, and spices. They're processed, but you're usually adding them to something else when you're cooking. Group 3, processed foods. These are foods made by combining Group 1 and Group 2. Things like canned beans with salt, cheese, fresh made bread with simple ingredients. They've been processed to make them more shelf stable or enjoyable, but they're still pretty close to their original form. Okay, now group number 4, ultra-processed foods. The group that everyone says is horrible and you should avoid at all costs. Not necessarily the case. We need some nuance here. Ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, are often made with ingredients that you wouldn't typically find in your kitchen. It has nothing to do with whether or not you can pronounce the ingredient or not. That might be common, but that's not how we define ultra-processed foods. Actually, we don't even have a true definition of ultra-processed foods despite this NOVA classification system. Ingredients that you might find in ultra-processed foods could be something like artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, and additives. Doesn't mean they're all bad for you just because you don't have them in your own kitchen. But this is the important part. Not all ultra-processed foods are created equally. Remember when I said that the NOVA classification system just identifies the level of processing in a food and not the nutrition? Some foods that fall under the ultra-processed food category are nutrient dense and provide a lot of nutritional value. Think things like fortified cereals that provide iron and B vitamins, shelf-stable hummus, protein bars. What would we do without all of our protein bar options? And these nutrient-dense ultra-processed foods are added into the same category as things like soda, candy. Tell me how that's fair. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what the research says about ultra-processed foods. Now yes, research has shown that high intakes of ultra-processed foods is linked to an increase in many chronic diseases. But again, this is where we need to zoom out. These studies are mostly observational. That means they show trends, which is important to consider. Many of these studies don't look at the type of ultra-processed foods that people are consuming, just the quantity. So while it's start to pay attention to how much we're eating of these foods, we don't need to panic if we lean on some of them, especially when they're offering nutrition that supports growth and development for kids. So here's the bottom line. Focus on adding value. Instead of stressing about every single food you have to avoid, think about foods that have nutritional value that you can add. Can you pair your favorite chips with some fruit? Or maybe add some crunchy carrots with ranch alongside your kid's favorite crunchy snack. It's okay to lean on convenient, nutrient-dense options, especially as a parent. There is absolutely a place for shelf-stable, pre-made, packaged foods that help get you through the week. Again, are you adding to those foods that's going to help you and your kids meet your nutrient needs? Balance matters more than labels. Whether a food is ultra-processed or not doesn't automatically make it good or bad. So look at the bigger picture. Are your kids also getting in fruits, veggies, whole grains, and lean proteins throughout the day or even the week? Because we all know how feeding kids goes. No, it doesn't have to be organic to be healthy either. Remember, here at the Good Eaters Club, perfection is not the goal here. Progress and practicality are, and eating more fruits and vegetables. I'm all about helping you feed your kids in a way that works for your family, your budget, and your real life, which might look different than mine. So let me ask you this. What kind of relationship with food do you want for your kids? If you're hoping to raise confident, adventurous eaters who can enjoy food without fear, guilt, or shame, or needing to clean their plate, you're in the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and join the Good Eaters Club, because together we're changing the conversation about what it means to really raise a good eater. And every good eater looks different. I'm gonna eat my ultra processed prunes. Well, potassium sorbate.